Hello, razor clammers. I am pumped. This little live video is going to be about what you need to go, the preparation piece. First things first, we're in the Pacific Northwest. Let's get some rain gear. So I usually grab a raincoat. Any raincoat will do, but it's really important that you do have a raincoat, even if it's not raining hard. Sometimes a little bit of rain and then the wind and the surf. It's just nice to have a raincoat. And then boots, or like leg boots or waders. A lot of people use like a bibs. That's totally fine. I use waders. I'm camoed out. You're not gonna see me. More likely to see Sasquatch on the beach than you are to see me. So the next thing that you're going to do is have your tools for the actual job. First piece of lighting that I bring with me is a headlamp. It's important that you see these little dimples in the sand. That's the clam show, and you'll be looking for this little hole in the sand, and so you want to have really good lighting for that. And I grabbed this to show you, but a lantern, because I think that there is nothing better than a good old-fashioned, all-American, like actual lantern, the ones that you light, the propane lantern that you actually light. I think they put out the best light. Dark, a safety tip. When you're clam digging, there's usually a lot of people, thousands of people come down to the beach for this. I would recommend that you grab something to put on your truck or wrap around your antenna. A lot of people use like a glow stick, so you know which rig's yours on the way back. You have your waders. We talked about lighting, getting back to your truck. It's going to be dark by the time you get back, or close to dark. It'll be harder to find it. Important tool of the trade, the net. Where are you going to put your clams? You can bring a bucket with you. Really anything that's going to hold your clams is going to be totally fine. But it's like pro tip here is to get yourself one of these clam nets. And on my waders, I stole these off of my fishing waders, and so I like run this through my belt, and it sits right here on my hip. So shovel down. As I grab my clams, I'm just dropping them in my net, and I can go. And so the net, these are for razor clams. I mean, so they'll fit your 15 clams, and 15 clams is your limit. And so this will be perfect. You can pick these up anywhere. Even the gas stations on the way out have these nets, so those would be perfect. So net, this is where your clam's gonna go. Do this a few times a year, or maybe you're a kiddo, or maybe your shoulders aren't as good. Sometimes this can be a really good option. Maybe not your shoulders aren't good, you're still pulling it. But consider this. And there's plastic ones. You can buy them for like $12 at the store, all the way up to like $150 for like a really cool one. But I'm going to show you the way that I learned how to clam dig from my mom, and she always used the clam shovel. Now this clam shovel is kind of shaped. This is a deadly tool rig. This is the way that you'll see a lot of people out there doing it. There's kind of a technique. It's a little bit harder to learn. It takes sometimes a few tries. Just getting into it, I would totally recommend trying the gun out. And so that is two of the options. So I have two of these things piled up. I have my net, I have my waders, I have my raincoat. Another thing that you want to consider having is the tide book. So here's the thing. The tide is at 6:58. It's almost at 7 o'clock. But why don't you go right at the low tide? I mean, some people do, but the clam digging is best 2 hours, 1 to 2 hours leading up to that low tide marker. And so usually people arrive about 2 hours before. And if you get out there and you're not seeing those clams show, don't get discouraged. Chase that tide as it goes out, and you might just come on your clams. And so the further out that tide goes, the more that the clam habitat is exposed, and so you'll certainly want to be there 2 hours before. And if you're not getting right away, just keep with it, stick with it. So we're out clam digging, and the tide is lowest here in about an hour, but I'm still kind of waiting for it to go out. This is kind of where my clam habitat is, right where we're about to cover. So I get a couple seconds of looking for clam shows, and then I'm able to like dig for a couple. So my mom is like way out there here. And so as we're waiting for our water to go out, we're looking for little keyholes or dimples, or like holes with a little donut around it in the sand. And if we're not sure, we can kind of poke at it and see if that hole starts pumping out some water. So what I'm doing is tapping on the sand. I'm trying to disturb a clam that might be here in the water. And oh, Kylie's onto something. Did you find a dimple? So perfect. Oh, I got one. I know it. So
what do we know?
Oh boy!
Right.
So tell us what you saw.
It was just a little movement.
Just a little bit of movement out of a little dimple, right?
Yep.
And so when we caught up with Kylie, he had his gun shoveled, so he centers his gun over the hole and he digs down, covers this hole up in the handle, and that creates a suction and he pulls it up. He angles his gun a little bit towards the water because clams do dig down and slightly diagonal towards the water or towards the ocean. So that direction. And one of the things that I love the most about the Pacific Northwest is over the weekend I got to go clam digging. I caught some fresh steelhead. It was just a wonderful, good old-fashioned, all-American Grays Harbor County type of weekend. It was pretty awesome. So I thought I would show you how to clean clams. So I have my limit and part of my boyfriend's limit. I'm going to clean those up and I was going to show you how I do that. So let me show you a little bit about what I have going and what it is you need to get your clams clean. Razor clams, step one. We had some really good sized clams. Oh yeah, that's a mossy bark. I've got a bowl to put my clean clams in, a pair of scissors, a knife, and I have some boiling water going. I'm going to remove the shell, clean all the innards, and it'll be ready for cooking. So you can kind of see it here, but there's this glue type thing that a clam has that keeps it bound to its shell. And if you don't have hot water, it's okay to just kind of like cut that off, but sometimes you kind of like cut into the clam. Like I can kind of pull this apart pretty easily. But if you dump a little bit of hot water, they all kind of like pop off from the shell. And so that just makes it a little bit easier to clean. So I'm just gonna dump some hot water over these guys, and they're gonna kind of pop off from their shell here. So these have like popped wide open now, and I don't have to go through that difficult part of removing that glue and pulling them from the shell. I literally just lift it from the shell and that sort of thing. And if it's brown, we get rid of it. If it's white, like this part of the clam, it stays. So the first thing I do is cut the tip of the siphon off, cut up what I call the zipper, cut the zipper all the way up and into the siphon of the clam. And there's two parts of the siphon. So I've cut up that, but there's actually a second part to the siphon here. So, but see, there's like sand and that sort of thing in here, so I've cut that. Now here you see some dark stuff. We're gonna cut this off. And some people cut this, what I call the digger. It's like its little foot that it uses to dig into the sand, and then it pumps sand and water out that side to get going there. So I'm gonna cut some of this brown off. We don't want that. And then this digger that hangs down, you know, some people clean it all together as one. I cut it all off. I'm gonna eat that digger, I am, but I'm going to cut this off for cleaning for the moment. I'm gonna rinse this off, and I'm gonna rinse it really well because here on the sides of the clam, this is where sand hangs out, and you don't ever want to leave sand in there, otherwise you get it a little bit crunchy. So this I'm gonna rinse and I'm gonna put it in my bowl. Now this is honestly one of my favorite parts of the clam here. So this is, okay, so I just squeezed it and you see this little thing that popped out. That, I hope I don't butcher this for anyone who's a biologist watching this. The crystalline style the clam has in its stomach, and it basically uses this to digest food. So kind of like the way we have saliva to like break down our food, this is what they use to break down theirs. So get rid of that. I cut this goo out, and once I've cut most of the goo, I take my scissors and kind of run it up the center and open this up, if you will. And inside, there's just kind of more clam gut stuff. So cutting this all the way open, I'm gonna rinse all of this really, really well. So that's me. So rinse it out really well. Into the bowl it goes. I'm gonna rinse my other portion of clam. Rinsing this out, not waste all the water. Rinsing this out really well. And if you have any questions, comment, I'll get back to you. If you want any other how-to videos on this sort of thing, maybe how to fillet a fish or clean fish or anything like that, throw that in the comments for me so I can get something going for you guys like that too. But hopefully you're having a wonderful weekend, and I will be back with